Welcome back to Port Elizabeth, the beautiful city. This is part 11, and we resume that walk, which is now, I think, in its third section in the heart of Main Street between White's Road and the bottom of Russell Road. So there are several nice-looking Art Deco buildings, which were the second generation of buildings after the original 19th century shops and offices that went up here. Just to its right, this one here you can see is probably from the 19th century. So the whole street would have looked like that. Probably actually that would have been the second row of buildings on Main Street. So the first would have just been single and double story places, shops and houses. And here we get a look at I think it says 1857 on that gable up there. So, a lot of these have been really dedicated to other things, but that gives you a sense of how it looked in the 19th century. Big office block there on the right, late sort of 60s or 70s, I guess. And as these more modern monoliths went up, at least they tried to soften them with a few interesting details like this frieze here. So this is looking up Donkin Street towards the Donkin Reserve, which was on the left, and the Donkin Row of terraced houses. And back down Main Street, so there were a few sort of, actually before I got to PE, they demolished a wonderful Mutual Arcade, I think it was called, a fantastic old building on a par with that old post office. So it's lost a lot of its character. There are a couple of Art Deco buildings on the left there. And then these little friezes. So this is still the old Mutual, but it's probably a next generation. So these are interesting in their own right. I mean, a chap using a theodolite or something. Yeah, not sure which building these are actually in. I've zoomed in a bit on, so that must be all about farming. There's industry there, what are the cog? And there the Campanile on the right here. So this clearly shows us which building this is. I'll easily be able to find it again. The side, one doesn't really notice this walking down Main Street, but this is the entrance to the St. Mary's Cathedral from Main Street. And underneath I always saw a sort of biblical allusion here. Look at this barbed wire, it's pathetic really. So this is beneath the extension to the nave of the St. Mary's is this shop. And it made me think of Jesus ousting the money lenders. So here you've got sort of, I think it would originally have been a church shop, but clearly those days are gone. There is that extension. Back to the old library, the library. Wonderful old building. And there's St. Mary's with gate thing in the front. Nice English style church, you know. The side of the library, and that's the library as seen through that gate, St. Mary's. 1832, St. Mary's, the first one went up. And then it burnt down. So there were additions made in 1860. 1895 it burnt down, but was rebuilt by 1896, with even Paul Kruger contributing a donation, along with Cecil Rhodes. And a detail of the library with the City Hall in the background there. All this on the library facade, made in the UK and shipped out here. And this points to all these attractions, you know. It was already looking weathered and is probably no more, since I don't think tourists are coming here anymore. Yeah, so I think we'll let's just continue here with the Holy Rosary Convent, which is, this was another of the things that got me out photographing, because they were online. I just started on Facebook in 2014, and I was finding references to how the Holy Rosary Convent was collapsing. That it dates from 1867. They left Dublin, these foundresses, set up a mission. So the Holy Rosary Convent merged to form, let's try and find out when they built this place. So it must have been around 1867. This is how it looked back then in 2014. Was it? When did we do this? August 2014. Lovely little church in the background there. It's a chapel, really. But this is the building, the most historic building, and you'll see that it had been gutted by fire, no roof at this point. Next door, this was still operating. Elsen was a kind of educational institution. But here we can see how weathering, fire taken its toll. And the Roman numerals on this facade, which you see up here, give us 1867. So that's why I was so concerned that they fixed the damn thing. Of course, it was the same person who owns a lot of the other buildings that are deteriorating, who owns this thing. Anyway, some work was going to be done, and even this thing across the road, which is the old Sunnyside apartment block, at this point was just a vandalized wreck with vagrants living in it. And the sadness is that it's right next door to Cora Terrace, another incredibly famous historic landmark in PE, Cora Terrace, which I think we get to now. Yeah, this is it. So Georgian homes built in the 1850s to house soldiers guarding the port. I mean, the Georgian, you know, it's... And, yeah, the decay. With that lovely light standard on the left there. So at this point, they were looking quite well preserved. Cora Terrace. Cora Terrace is bottom right. I can't see it at this size, down there somewhere, I think. And then in Gordon Terrace, which runs along the top of the Barklands Valley, overlooking the valley. Also another lovely row of English-style houses. And this beautiful building in Kyler Street, First Church of Christ Scientist. Never heard of it before, and it was so well preserved, right next door to this absolute disgrace. An Art Deco building that's just been allowed to run to rack and ruin. And that's looking back down Cora Terrace. So here's that Church of Science, Christ Scientist, and you can see on the left that ugly ruin of a building. There's some really interesting buildings in that. Love that gable there. And across Brickmakers on Jutland Crescent, a roofless building. So there's another historic building without a roof. You can't really see it here, but it's gables. All you see are the gables and the roof is missing, gutted. Yet simultaneously there are, or at this time part in history, we can just get him to focus. Look at these beautiful gables. I mean, that's a classic settler cottage, as are those. I mean, finials are still there. Pity about these foreground shade things, but so there's that row. And then you got this travesty. But then right next door, properly preserved, right next door to that is this. But I do think they fixed this building up. It's been restored into some sort of, but at this point it was a disaster. This here, clearly they've added this front section, which is a pity, because it would look great with just the facade, the original facade. And this is a historic building, the old museum building. Beautiful, still well maintained. Can't remember who owns it. Might be the university. So it says here, originally was a dwelling house built for Henry Rutherford in 1861. In 1896 became the home of Adam Guthrie, Mayor of PE from 12 to 15. It was left to the PE Museum and used as a museum from 1918 to 61. Then housed extramural activities of Rhodes University, which was taken over by University of Port Elizabeth and was currently used for commercial purposes. And this house next door was owned by Tossi Tehran, who had an art gallery out the other side in Kyler Street. And there's another lovely building which was also taken over by a business. So this was Dani and Tossi Tehran's house. Not sure of the age, but he was the head of architecture at NMU, at the university, so I think he would have bought something historic. And there's that building seen through the security stuff. And then the Kyler Street, the EP Society of Arts and Crafts Gallery, EPSAC, but then it became Art EC. So they just tried to, get rid of history. I mean, the EP Society of Arts and Crafts was the first arts and Crafts Association in Port Elizabeth. So why not just retain that? I mean, I love the way they've decorated that with those. That mural is attractive. And it's on a lovely settler cottage. I mean, the fact that it's been retained, that is all thanks to EPSAC, not to, well, this is in Upper Bird Street, which also features many other lovely buildings, as does the lower part. I think we're in Bird Street. I actually lose track when I'm jumping around like this. Yeah, so that's Kyla Street down the bottom there. Yeah, Bird Street and corner of Bird Street and Rose Street. Heading down towards Pearson Street Congregational Church. I think at this point I'm going to stop. We're going to get visiting another new historic church, the Congregational Church. Cheers for now.